for February the 4th, 2020 to order at 5:30. Thank you guys for being here. All the time. Let me call the roll. Councilmember Nakamura.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Linda Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
The mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Ricky.
Here.
We're all present and accounted for. And we only have 4 items on the agenda tonight and 1 hour to do it. So we're going to start right off with Chief Miller.
Yeah. So I'm going to take 59 minutes of your time.
Ready.
Excellent. I had a lot of questions.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Michael Miller, the Chief of Police.
Complain, Ray.
I want to introduce my staff. I brought, so Chief Ray is out with a sick child, so she can't be here. She sends her regards. Lieutenant Graves is here, and Sergeant Tinsman is here. We thank them for coming, and they're a big part of the what we're doing in the department.
We know that she's just tentatively watching right now. I know.
I'm sure she is. She put all the words in my mouth, so if I screw up, it's her. If I screw up, it's me. If anything goes right, it's her. Let me just get started here. We're going to go over the crime report for 2019, and then we're going to go into a show and tell a little bit regarding our body cameras and the body camera program.
I think I'll just turn it, see the slides. Haven't been trained yet.
I got a lot of tools, but not one that works this.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
There we go. So we've talked about the UCR, the Uniform Crime Report, before. I've given you guys a presentation on this. This actually will be the last time you see this because this is the UCR summary system, and it's going away 2021. But essentially, Part 1 crimes is what we want to pay attention to here. Murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, theft, auto theft, and arson. Those are the major crimes. That's been around since 1930 with the addition of arson much later. Here are the crime numbers. I'll give you just a second to take a look at that. I will highlight a few things for you. Overall, crime went up by 9%. Our numbers are relatively small, so that actually looks like it's 14 crimes. So if you look at 2018 is one column, 2019 the column beside it, the number change and then the percent change. So we averaged less than one violent crime every other month for the year of 2019, and 13.9 Part 1 crimes, property crimes per month, for a total of 172 Part 1 crimes in all of 2019. Again, that's a 9% increase in the previous year. The first thing you'll probably notice is that rape decreased by 100%. We had 3 in 2018. We had none in 2019. Overall violent crime decreased by 38%, but that's really kind of skewed a little bit. That's just 3 crimes. We went from 8 to 5, which is 3 crimes. 5 aggravated assaults you see there. Those were all known assailants with the exception of one case that was a road rage case. So these are just crimes of passion when tempers flare. Our biggest decrease in property crime was in the category of burglary of motor vehicle, burglary of vehicle, a 21% decrease, which is great. That's one of our most frequent crimes that we see here. I think some of this, we hope, is due to the fact that we have been putting out on social media, alerting our citizens that we are vulnerable to it. Most of these are unlocked doors, so asking them to hide, lock, take. We've worked with businesses to make sure that we get signs up there to remind people that come and park in those parking lots to do that as well. And then our largest increase in crime, interestingly enough, for 2019 was auto thefts. So stealing of cars. We had none in 2018, and we had 10 in 2019.
Were they often doors left unlocked as well, or
Those
not
are-
necessarily?
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. Even if you leave your door open, it still doesn't give you access to, to start the car. We did recover a number of these. I will give you, we looked at our neighbors too, and let me just talk to you about our neighbors, just to give you kind of a scale. Keller had 30 last year, and that's up almost, I think it's 50. I think they had 15, and it's up to 30, something like that. Southlake had 22 last year, so every city's kind of seen an uptick in this.
Were these mostly from homes, or were there like parked at businesses installed?
It's a combination.
Combination.
Yeah, I actually, so one of the things we do is, we'll track all of that information. And I have a map here. I've got every type of vehicle, that's been stolen. Well, we only have 10, but the majority of them are actually pickups. And they are from, F-250s, yours is 450, maybe. 350. But a number of them, 550 maybe.
Can't get
I
into his.
don't know. They only make one. They only make one of his. A Linda
It's got a scary train horn on it.
So 6 of them were pickups, and then kind of smattered in. We had 2 Jeeps. One was an antique Jeep. One was a newer Jeep. We also tracked the location where they're recovered, and so we map where they are taken from and where they're recovered to try to establish a trend or pattern or see if they're related. We have had at least 2 of them recovered in North Richland Hills, so we think that there's somebody that may live around that area where we recovered them that are taking those vehicles there to cool off. So those are, that's part 1 crimes. Any questions before?
Did you happen to look at any of the data for the other cities, where they were recovered?
No, sir, we did not. We do work, we're part of an auto theft task force, so we do work together with other cities. Our detectives probably have the information, I just don't have it for this particular presentation.
Chief, what percentage of them are recovered? I mean, is it-
Well, almost all of them, I'd say 90% of them were recovered. We did have one, I know, that was recovered that was completely stripped.
Wow.
We had one that was recovered in Southlake that was used as part of a burglary scheme. So the police found this Jeep that was being used to transport these burglars around. They ran off, took off on foot. And then several of these have been, we found them intact in different places. So anything you guys would like to add, Sarge or Lieutenant, on those? One of the things that I wanted to point to here, though, is the biggest single number increase here is actually in other theft. We're talking 11 crimes. That particular number is really heavy in retail theft, and so theft from Market Street, from Albertsons, and I have a breakout, kind of a deep dive in the next couple of slides that we're going to talk about that in particular. But that's kind of where we saw a big increase in our crime.
But do they call every, say Albertsons sees someone stealing something, like you had in the picture, a bottle of wine or whatever, do they call on each one of those?
They do,
Okay.
but let me hold off that, because I do have some information that I think is a good news story, and it'll answer that question in the next couple slides. But to answer your question, it depends on the loss prevention of those stores. And if I don't answer the question, just remind me. So these are part 2 crimes here, which are kind of also the most frequent types of crimes that we see. They're not labeled major crimes, but they are things that we see around the community. And so, for example, we saw a total increase of 5% in part 2 crimes. The biggest areas are drug offenses, fraud, and runaways, actually, believe it or not. The fraud is probably the area where we saw the biggest increase, and I think I've talked to you about this before. There was a period of time where I was seeing a Verizon account opened almost every week, sometimes every day. We were getting calls, and so a group was operating in our area opening fraudulent Verizon accounts. And so our team was able to identify them. We were able to work with the federal authorities, and we were able to work with Verizon to figure out what that loophole was, what they were doing with it, where those phones were going. And once we started to take that layer out of people and charge them, then these dried up. I can't remember the last time I actually saw one of these, but they were stealing mail, they were stealing identities, and they were opening fraudulent accounts. this is just a crime trend by year, the number of Part 1 crimes per year. You can see that, we are trending up in the last couple of years. Probably has to do something with the chief that was selected in 2018.
I remember in an interview that the individual that we finally chose said that they might go up. So
Well,
that
so-
was our error, I guess, in choosing.
Yes, so everybody told me you got the easiest job as the safest city in Texas, and I can tell you one thing with 100% certainty, that crime's gonna go up and crime's gonna go down.
Oh,
And my
okay.
staff can quote that as well, but one crime is one crime too many for me.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't matter what it is, we're serious about it. The increase in crime is an offense to me, personally, and so, you're gonna kind of see how we go about dealing with this, but, in just a second.
And those intangibles, were there a lot of them like phone thefts and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, they're everything.
Yeah, okay.
The other thefts are everything from,
That's most of what I read online, is the, cellular phones or iPads being stolen.
yeah, we see it at the schools, we see, you get, it's just, I can give you every example, and we got one here, one there.
Yeah.
Somebody got a wallet stolen the other day, who just left it out, stuff like that. So this one here, on this slide here, it's kind of busy, but this kind of gives a highlight. The red bars are 2019, the blue bars are 2018. This is kind of the patrol activity for the years, comparing each year. So last year, we had 7,129 calls for service. We had 510 arrests, which are about 42 a month. And you see, arrests, we had a 29% decrease there. We also had a decrease in traffic stops. And so we dug down into that, and what we think is happening there, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on there, but the numbers dwindled down towards the end of last year. And so our organization has been gearing up to deal with a bunch of trainees that are coming out. So we're sending more folks than we've ever had to field training school, to be field training officers. Matter of fact, tomorrow, we're gonna have 8 in field training. Today, we have 4. We've never in the history of this department that I'm aware of ever had even 4 in field training at one time. So we really had to ramp up to deal with the vacancy issue, and that takes away, anytime we're training and anytime we've got a trainee with us, those are high-performing officers that usually have a lot of arrests and traffic stops that are now focusing their time on helping a new officer understand sort of how the city works and how things are going. So you can see it tail off. It started strong in 2019, and then it tailed off as we started to get people into FTO towards the end of the year. What I can tell you is I'm confident that these numbers will come up. As soon as we get these rookies out of field training, we're likely to see a spike in both arrests and traffic stops just because they're energized. Mayor?
Crash reports went down.
Yes, sir. We're gonna break, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there's actually, we can
Yeah,
go
I
to that.
saw that.
We'll go to that real quick, and then I'll come back. On crashes here, you can see, the top left graph, blue is 2019, red is 2018. Those are the top streets where we see traffic crashes across the city. We saw a decrease in all of this, or no change, in all of them. So that's a good news. Colleyville Boulevard, is down 18% in 2019.
Really good.
And that's likely
That's
due to,
surprising.
it is surprising, it's counterintuitive, but
Yeah.
we think it's due to the construction. The construction confuses people, it slows people down. You'd think it causes more crashes. The speeds are just not as high as they
Well,
are.
it goes counter to just stories you hear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, we got a lot of wrecks because of all the construction going on.
So overall, we had 209 crashes reported in 2018 compared to 186 in 2019. We did see that injury percentages went up by 3%. So we do track that, the percentage of crashes that result in injuries. And then that far right graph shows contributing factors in blue for 2019 and red for 2018. The things you see there are obviously the things fail to control speed, the things following too closely, those things that we know contribute to traffic crashes. Let me go back to this one.
So there can be more than, on one wreck, there can be more than one rotary, right, or not?
Do we typically, I think we
We do track those, but we do the primary one as the reporting one, so, yes.
Doesn't want to skew the data.
So this is activity level for our criminal investigative division. In the bottom left graph, blue is part 1 crimes, and then red is actually cleared crimes. So clearance is a particular thing that we track, and I'll talk about it here in just a second. CID detectives investigated 772 new cases in 2019. That's an average of 64 new cases assigned every month. Investigators submitted 2,012 investigative supplements. So every time they do something on a case and investigate it, they find out new information, they write it up and create a supplement that goes into that case file. Our clearance rate, which is basically the number of crimes or percentage of crimes that we solve, is 31% of our part 1. So the clearance rates vary by type of crime. As you can imagine, a violent crime typically leaves a lot more evidence, and so the solvability of a violent crime is usually higher than a property crime. Property crimes are usually done by somebody who wants to avoid detection, right? And so average national property crime clearance rate is 17.6, and this year we had 28%. So we're doing well against the national average. National average violent crime clearance rate is 45.6, and obviously, we solved 100% of our violent crimes. We just have so few, but we did solve them all. Burglary, if you're interested, is 13.5, and so we were at 36 for burglary. I want to take a little deep dive into retail theft and do a little case study. So in 2019, retail theft accounted for 25% of our total Part 1 crimes. 43 of 172. That's a significant percentage. One location, which is Albertsons, 4,000 Glade Road, was responsible for 20 of those crimes, which represented 11% of our total Part 1 crimes. So we noticed that one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and our guys can all say this, we're an intelligence-led, data-driven, strategy-focused agency. It means we're using intelligence and we're using data to point us to how we deploy our resources. So in September of 2019, we noticed an uptick in retail thefts, especially at Albertsons, at one location. Police senior staff, myself, our senior staff detectives met with Albertsons leadership to discuss the trend and develop a collaborative solution. A strategy to address the issue was developed that included increased communications within and between the stores on trends and known suspects. What we found was they were only giving their suspects to a few key people in the store. So best practice is get that information out to everybody. Market Street, we actually awarded a Chiefs coin to one of the guys that was working there as an assistant manager, but he saw a known criminal come into Market Street. He called us. We were able to get there and arrest that person, and so we gave him a little award for that.
Is that because the other stores had shared that, or they knew he came in the store all the time?
So it's because they knew it. There is an organized retail theft organization that shares information across retail stores in the area. And so that's one of the things, engage in the Organized Retail Crime Association. They're all engaged in that. Whether it's robust engagement or not, that's where we had an opportunity here, actually. Market Street is pretty much on top of these folks. We get more in-progress calls at Market Street because their folks are looking. What we saw at Albertsons they didn't have a full-time loss prevention person there, and they also were not distributing the information to the people who are working the registers and anybody that's moving around, the cart guys. The guys that go and get the carts actually are eyes and ears that get out there and because they use the same vehicles. And so all of that information is shared in this retail crime association. So we asked them, how can we share information with you? How can you better share information among your stores and among your people? And so we developed that strategy with them, and so they began to do that. They put up pictures in the break room so people could see it. They distributed it to everybody. They talked to their people about it. We offered an increased presence of police. If you want to hire off-duty police officers, we're open to that. If you have loss prevention, we'd prefer it be a uniform loss prevention person in the front of the store so they see them when they walk in. Best practice. Every loss prevention person I've ever met likes to be plain clothes and be hiding behind the shampoo and then get out there. You know, everybody wants to just catch them in the act. We want to prevent it, right? We don't want to. And so they, due to this collaboration, they put a loss prevention person in the store.
At Market Street you're talking about?
Nope, I'm talking at Albertsons. This is
Oh,
all,
Albertsons,
yeah,
gotcha.
this is all related to Albertsons. Albertsons is really where we saw the biggest problem this year. We also recommended that they upgrade their cameras at their entries and exits. They now have high definition camera at eye level as you walk out both sides. They also have a camera that shows you on a video screen when you walk in. And then some of their areas where they had product that were frequently stolen, shampoo, baby formula, those kinds of things, they've got cameras in those areas now, and they've placed them in the middle of the store so that they have to go into the store and not just at the front of the store. And then see something, say something. So we gave all their people our cell phones. We said, call us immediately. We will come out there. And so 10 crimes occurred in Albertsons before that September meeting. They were calling days or weeks after the crime. So they were reviewing video, and they would see that stuff was taken, and then they'd call us to make a report once they found out about it. We had no in-progress arrests at Albertsons at all before that meeting. Since that meeting, 10 crimes occurred after the September meeting, 7 in-progress arrests for retail theft, 1 detained and released with a citation and criminal trespass warning, 2 additional arrests after our investigators looked into it and identified some suspects. 1 was arrested by Hearst, later identified as one of our suspects due to inter-store communication. And then we saw improved video cameras, and so they're proud of that. So this is a success for us, we think, in that, and while we may see an uptick in these crimes, but because before they're reviewing it on video, they may or may not have seen it, we're actually getting called now during the call, and so we've made a big dent in arresting these people that are committing these offenses.
Great.
So they're not just going to Albertsons, they're going to other stores. Albertsons just happens to be strategically located close to 121, so it's a very quick exit.
Get in and out quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a reminder on crime reporting changes that are upcoming here, switching gears. We talked about the National Incident-Based Reporting System, NIBRS. Texas set a goal for all state agencies to implement this new reporting system, this new reporting methodology by September 2019. We didn't make that date because of the system that we're on, but we did finally make December. January 1st, 2021 is when the FBI actually says everybody needs to be transitioned to NIBRS. Specifically in Colleyville, crimes, which is our reporting system, was upgraded in October of 2019 and received NIBRS certification through the state of Texas. We sent our first test file in November, officially sent our first NIBRS file to DPS in December. It was accepted and everything went well, so that we're the first of our consortium with Keller and Southlake to actually report NIBRS to DPS. And we're now compliant with Texas requirements and are ahead of the FBI schedule. Which is
Understood.
So now we're going to switch over to the body camera demonstration. Before we do that, I think you may have seen this, but I want to show this video real quick that demonstrates our body camera capability. And it also is a good story. Can you expand it? far right on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, we did see this.
Can we turn it up?
So what's your address?
This is funny.
Hi, you ordered pizza?
Yeah, well, what the heck? You brought it?
Yeah, well, he was involved in the wreck. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, you're so sweet.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's still hot, I believe, so hopefully it'll be okay. Yes, ma'am. Have a good day. You too, ma'am. Thank you. Here's your signed copy, though.
Okay, the mailbox.
So what happened there, if you didn't know the story there, the delivery driver was involved in a traffic crash on his way to deliver pizza. He was distraught. His car was totaled. He couldn't deliver the pizza. And so the pizza delivery location was just a few blocks down. Corporal Sterrett took it on to go deliver that. And so for us, it was a great way for us to highlight the capability of those body cameras in a good news story. And so we're super thankful for the council support and the city manager's office support in implementing body cameras, getting us into the next century of policing. Current technology, but
That's a great video.
it is.
Yes.
Did you get a tip?
Love that.
He did not get a tip. It was all on the credit card. It was all on the credit card. And if he did, it would be on that video. And he would be under investigation if he took that. So
That's in the state of the city.
that's awesome. So I wanted to introduce Sergeant Tensman. He's kind of been the project manager that's led the implementation of all of our camera systems. So he led the implementation of our in-car video system that went live in April of 2018. And part of that was the pre-planning for the eventual implementation of body cameras. And so the leap to body cameras was not very hard for us. The storage had all been pre-planned, and it was basically kind of a plug-and-play thing. So, Sarge?
Yeah, so, like Chief said, we already had the system in place. WatchGuard is who we chose for our in-car solution. So the body cams, we have 42 of them. That allows for all uniformed officers to be assigned one. So we don't keep a bank of them at the police department. Everybody's assigned. That way, if they're working an off-duty job or any other type of enforcement, they have a body camera assigned to them. So they'll have to come to the police department first to do that. They're capable of recording in full HD, and we can get a full 12-hour shift of recording out of that battery and storage. Full integration into our current system. So we sync it into a cradle. It doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, 3, 4 officers assigned to that car. They all sync up. When one person hits record, everything records. Or if you hit record on the car or hit your lights. So the majority of the stuff that we do is automated. No user input. We hit the lights to pull somebody over. Camera starts recording, activates body cam and our microphone all at the same time. And if you have a partner, activates their camera too. So seamless integration into our current system. Then when the officers are done, they just come back to the police department, stick it in a cradle that has a connection to the network, and within about 10 minutes, all the video is off of there, and it also fast charges the device. So really what the body cams do is give us a fourth stream. Currently, the cars have a standard front view camera that everybody's accustomed to, but when we upgraded to the new in-car system, we went with a panoramic camera. And what that does is it gives us full view, A pillar to B pillar, and it's really what the officer sees in the car. So you get a really wide panoramic view. Because what we found is oftentimes an incident would start on screen and kind of go off into the ditch or into the yard, and now you're off view and you couldn't see it anymore. The panoramic allows that. What this allows is for a first-person interaction, first-person view, right? Which is much, much different, and you can see further in. You can get the facial expressions of the violators. When we're dealing with somebody that's intoxicated, you actually see them swaying more than from the in-car camera. So Does anybody have any questions about?
Are the
I kind of
microphones-
passed them around.
Are the microphones built into this?
Microphones are built into those. We have a magnetic mount that goes on the uniform. They're very, very sturdy. I could probably rip my shirt before I'm gonna take this camera off. They're ruggedized, and when we purchased them, we got a full no-fault warranty with no deductible. So if they were to get damaged in a scuffle or a fight, we send it in and they send us a replacement immediately.
Is the camera stabilized in any way, like as you move around, does it give you a stable?
There's really good technology. You can tell from Corporal Staird's video. I don't know the level of stabilization, but it's not wobbling around a lot. And it has a really good fisheye camera in there that gets a wide angle, but it's not so much that everything's distorted. WatchGuard's one of the leaders in that. And then if you look at the front, you can actually adjust this camera up and down. So the taller officers can kind of point it down, or if you're shorter, or if you want to wear it on your belt, you know, however you want to wear it, wherever you want to wear it, you can adjust that camera angle.
A pretty impressive system, all integrated like that.
It is.
Yep.
And then there's a back end to that where we can go and review the video. We actually do, as a process, review video all the time on our officers.
And that integration's amazing because, like I said, really it just gives us a fourth stream. We used to get 3 videos, now we just get 4, and that's that body camera in there. Unless there's 2 officers, then we would get 5. But everything's all kind of married together. It's easy to find. You don't have to search.
It's really neat. They're not
Do
too
we have,
heavy either.
do
No,
we
it-
have
it
local
is really
and
seamless when
offsite
you do
backup
Do we have local and offsite backup?
of the data?
So we have in-house server, and it uses a RAID array. I think there's upwards of like 16 disks, and it's redundant, so we could probably lose 7 or 8 hard drives at the same time and still not lose any data, so it is
Oh,
redundant.
The problem is, if something happened to the building,
At the building, yes.
Yeah,
There is no offsite backup.
It's not offsite.
Correct.
that's something we probably want
It's
to
a
look into.
consideration, should be a consideration.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So thank you for your suggestion.
On that thing, you can find you an offsite cloud somewhere.
Any other questions regarding crime or body cameras?
No, that's wonderful.
That's great. Thank you so much.
We've got
Thank
another
you, Chief.
25
Thank you,
minutes.
guys.
Sorry, Ray.
Michael? All right, what do you, I told you have another 25 minutes.
No.
I'll yield my time to
Raise your
the
hand,
gentleman
soon
from
the
Public Works.
podium.
I'm already up.
Didn't have to.
Yielded your time.
Stormwater master.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Ray Silverez, Director of Public Works. We're one step closer to finalizing the drainage master plan. And before we do that, I wanted to go ahead and just bring up our consultant, Misty Christian, who's with Kimley Horn, who's been helping us out with this project. And we have had 2 public meetings already since the beginning of this study. We met with the public and got their feedback. Then went back and looked at some of those issues that they brought up, and then met with them again to see if there was anything we were missing. Behind the scenes, we were also working on looking at some maintenance and operation stuff that we can implement throughout this study, as well to see how it all integrates together. And we're looking at 3 legs on a stool here. We're looking at a capital improvement plan, a maintenance and operation plan, and some updates or full revisions to our land development criteria. So for the majority of this presentation, Misty will be up here updating you, and then we'll chime in together here towards the end. So Misty?
Thanks, Ray. Again, my name is Misty Christian with Kimley Horn Associates, and I had the privilege to work on this drainage master plan. I kind of want y'all to think about this as not necessarily a state of the union, but it's kind of the state of y'all city's drainage systems. I'm going to present a lot of information, data, and results, and so just kind of take it in. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to be looking for some feedback of how can we implement some of these policies, projects, how do we move forward so that it doesn't just sit on the shelf as data. We want to do something with it and enhance in the drainage system. Now we're going to talk about, like Ray mentioned, there's generally 3 different categories or components of the drainage master plan. We're going to go in, look at the public meetings. The components we're going to talk about are the roadway crossings. We've divided those into the low water crossings, and then generally all the other roadway crossings that cross FEMA-regulated tributaries or creeks, okay? The other areas, neighborhood studies, these were kind of outside of the roadway crossings, areas where the cities might have had residents call with some concerns about issues within their neighborhood. We kind of did a high-level review of those areas. And then maintenance of those roadway crossings mentioned previously, as well as looking at the Little Bear Creek maintenance challenges. We're going to talk about that tonight. And again, at the very end, lots to talk about, so we want y'all's feedback on an implementation plan. Ray mentioned we had 2 public meetings about a year ago, 2019, and then again in September. We wanted to get out to the public and ask them what their thoughts were on the drainage system. And it was kind of open-ended. We didn't have a presentation. We had several stations set up, about 7 to 8 stations, had a pretty good turnout. The residents came in and we interviewed them. We sat back and we listened. Tell us about where you live and what you're experiencing. What have you seen flooding? And sorry, it's kind of dark back here. I can bring this up to the table, or can y'all kind of see this? There's the results.
It's okay.
So this was the actual board that we showed at the public meeting. In the green is the city limits of Colleyville. We've got Big Bear Creek running the north part of the city, Little Bear Creek running on the south side. The red dots, I don't know if y'all can see that in the back. Generally, these are all the roadway crossings. We looked at about 125 of them. And then you can see all these red dots are on tributaries. So these are little branches from the main creek. There's about 20 tributaries in Colleyville. So you're surrounded by a lot of drainage. And I think that surprised a lot of people of, wow, I've never seen a map with all the drainage considered before. And, you know, I might live in this little area, this little house that they could point to, but they really got a good picture of this watershed's bigger than what I thought. So it was good to hear that. We interviewed each of them, got their comments back, and put together a summary of what we call a hotspot map, which is, maybe you can see it better there on that map. What I really want y'all to focus on here is we categorized the feedback that we got into generally 3 categories. It was flooding, erosion, and debris. The yellow dots are flooding concerns, and it was their perception of flooding, so it might just be there's water in the ditches, or it might be something a little more significant. We just went ahead and classified it as flooding. The red is areas of debris down towards the south end of Little Bear Creek here. And then the green was people were complaining a little bit about erosion along the creek itself. So this was good information to start off with, and we went back to this throughout our analysis. It was good information. We went back September of 17th, 2019, had that second public meeting. Generally didn't get any additional information, but at least it gave the opportunity for citizens to come out to hear what they had to say. So from the public meetings, one of the first things we wanted to analyze were low water crossings. And I'm assuming generally everybody knows low water crossings. When I say that, you kind of know where they are around the city. Generally have 6 of them: Jackson Road, Bedford Road, Cheshire, and there's 2 on Oak Knolls and Martin Parkway. Okay, kind of gives you some pictures of what they look like. And we wanted to look at the low water crossings because they generally provide a higher level of threat to the public's health, safety, and welfare. They've usually got gates, we're shutting them down, police and fire respond all the time, so the city wanted to put this as more of a priority to look at first. Also, the city staff had a great idea. Let's go ahead and spend a little bit more time on these areas and put together concept plans and construction costs so that if there's opportunities for grants to come about, we're shovel ready to go. So part of this master plan was to prepare concept plans for these areas. Okay? Now, the not so good news, or maybe it is. Up in the upper left, based on the analysis that we saw with the water overtopping the road, what would it take to bring those low water crossings in current compliance with the city's criteria, 100-year? You can see the size of structures generally that it's going to take is the middle column, proposed structures, and the construction cost is that last column. So we're looking anywhere to about 15 to 18 million to address these needs. Okay. And again, those were kind of seen as the higher priority areas for the roadway crossings. We continued on with the remaining 125 crossings throughout the city. We followed the same procedure of evaluating each one and then figuring out, did it convey the 100-year storm event, which is y'all's current criteria? If not, what would it take to bring that into compliance? And then look at the associated cost. We also started ranking and prioritizing the crossings based on how much water inundated the roadway. The prioritization was broken down generally into 4 categories. The red would be the high priority crossings, and that's generally 2 foot of water or more on the road. So your low water crossings would fit in this category, and then it goes down from high, medium would be generally 1 to 2 feet, low, 0 to 1, and then you do have some sufficient ones across the city, which is great news. From 2 foot of inundation, depth of water over the road, the number of crossings, you got about 9 that you're looking at. You got about 17 in the medium category, and the low is 22. You've got about half of yours that are seen as being sufficient, which is, again, great news. And there's other maps up here if y'all want to come up and look. Just to kind of go a little deeper, we did prepare individual OPCC's construction estimates for each crossing, and that's how we came up with the construction cost. Generally using about 25% contingency just as a planning number. Again, our approach is just let's get our hands around what are the drainage concerns, where are we at, and then how much is it really going to cost if we were to fix everything. And that's what we're presenting tonight.
I liked how you went through and you line out everything out. I was reading through those are really good pieces that you put in there.
This isn't design
Very
level
thorough.
by any means, but it gives us a kind of a good handle.
Yeah, it's
Most
very
parts are
thorough in the
true.
construction industry of what you're really looking at, and those are good.
Okay, and then we've got individual maps that will be part of the master plan of every tributary, the 20 tributaries. We've got it outlined of where the crossing's at, what the prioritization is, what's the existing size, proposed size, and associated costs. So all that information, like I said, it's a lot of data. And just, you don't have to read all of these. Generally, we're looking at about 18 million for, if you were just to look at prioritization. Again, this is based on inundation of water over the road. Not really paying attention to the cost right now, okay? So 18 million for the high priority, medium, about 8 million. And then lower, ballpark, 10.3. Okay. The second component that we looked at was these neighborhood studies. Outside of the roadway crossings, where are the areas around town that maybe citizens have called and just voiced some concern? We did have a couple of residents during the public meeting point out some areas that seemed to be more neighborhood related. So I'm going to go through each of these and just generally describe what the project consists of and then some associated cost. So Saddlebrook, this is a resident's home. There is an existing storm drain system that goes on this blue general alignment. There was a sinkhole in her backyard, pipe collapsed. So we're looking at how to really fix it. Not sure if there's really an easement there to put the pipe first place. We looked at 2 alternate routes to address the system. Probably have to come back, get an easement to make sure the pipe's put in. Option 1, option 2. And again, this information was presented back to staff, and we're probably going to get some guidance from y'all of how does this play into this bigger picture of all these competing needs for drainage improvements, okay?
What is the state of it right now? You
So
said
that's
it's
what I was gonna
collapsed.
address. So
Okay.
we did have 2 sinkholes in the back of that property. We did hire a contractor to help us and fill those, that part that collapsed and kind of bridge it and backfill it so that it can continue on an interim
So we
basis.
just got a
right now.
Band-Aid on it right
So
now.
basically, it's got a Band-Aid on it right now. And that's when we, got with him, Kimley Horn, and said, we need to look at this and see, because obviously it's gonna collapse again. So what do we need to do? How do we be proactive to get ahead of that? And
Was
that's
that
where the
because
green
of the
light
age
comes in.
of the pipe? Is it concrete pipe back there?
So
Or
this
RC?
one's an interesting case. There is no easement back there.
Right.
There is somehow somebody tied to the back of the inlet, and it is an HDPE type pipe.
Oh.
So it's not even an RCP, which is what the city typically uses.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was a quick fix for an area that had a common problem
Probably.
back 20 years ago.
Older.
Yeah, and then finally it just gave in.
Put it in.
And so we kind of inherited this problem and we fixed it for now, but it is a Band-Aid. and to see what the long-term
And
solution is.
either way, you're going through a yard, you're going through somebody's driveway,
Yep, it is, yeah, especially right here, because you're gonna go on the other side now.
Very nice retaining wall in the backyard
Yes.
with the pool.
Say that again.
Nice retaining wall in the
So-
backyard with the pool.
The two sinkholes were right back here is where it took place.
Where's the house again?
The house is right here.
Oh, right, there we go.
So, I know this is a little bit of a technical question, you probably want to move on, but on option one, it gives a longer flow for distribution. If we go on option two, it's a shorter flow with more mass coming out for distribution. Which one do you think is best on something like that? For that area? Would it flood fast, what I'm asking is, would it flood faster on option two in the backside after the inlet? No?
I don't, on the hydraulics, since it's all closed system,
Yeah.
it shouldn't matter. Shouldn't be enough head loss is what we call it to make a difference in the extra length of
Okay, I
pipe.
didn't know if that faster flow on the hydraulics.
It's more of a
would make it-
constructability in my mind of
So
where
is
can we
that-
get in and make it work?
Is that something a resident put in?
It's probably the
I
land
tried to go
developer.
back and find whatever evidence I could, and
Well, if
It seems that way.
It would have had to have an easement.
right.
20 years ago,
Well-
people just putting stuff
Years
in.
isn't that long.
No.
Yeah, I know, but 20
Yeah,
years
real ordinance
ago,
is 20
hey,
years.
but I know people in the construction industry said, just do that. Well, ask for forgiveness later.
Exactly.
Here we are later.
Yeah, so this was a surprise, and that's what we fixed right now.
Interesting.
So you're saying it
Probably
is-
older than
is-
20
was-
years.
Probably so.
Was the city or it was the homeowner?
That's the part we can't determine. We know
Whomever.
that there's a pipe in there. We know it's conveying public water, stormwater, so that's why we took it upon ourselves to make sure we can fix it for now,
Yeah.
and then come up with the ultimate solution for it in the future.
Yeah, those houses are at least 30 years in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 19.
We better
maybe
move
late
or
30s.
should I?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll describe the general concerns here. Jim Mitchell, a lot of the water comes off this road, sheet flows off. You can see a house here, it goes in the backyard. It was impacting this resident and this one as a water turn, looking at enclosing or putting a pipe in instead of letting that water hit those hard 90s. Water doesn't want to.
Real quick on that one, Misty. It's not sheet flow, it's actually concentrated, because there is a valley gutter right there as it crosses Jim Mitchell, and sends that gush of water straight to that homeowner.
I call sheet flow valley good for it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
But it's more concentrated than just sheet flowing over the.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and it's
It all
really
funnels
bad.
down the driveway.
It's really bad.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, what do we got here? We got Ponderosa, large drainage area, I'll come into an existing flume here. Flume's really not big enough to take on the water, it backs up as the water's trying to get into the flume. Topography is very flat, so it actually, this black is inundation limits plus. So this gentleman was at the public meeting saying, and had pictures and videos of the water. So the improvement is to add storm drain in,
Bigger-
added capacity downstream.
Bigger inlet or
Bigger inlet and
end pipe?
Yes, sir. Continuing on, Bandit, water, just sheet flowing, non-pipe flow, is what we say. Coming along the ditch here, it's all, and again, there's houses all the way around. Not really a defined channel, water over time's made its way to find its own channel. Not sure there's easements there. Same thing here, sheet flow hitting Bandit, it's overtopping and going through kind of these houses.
Yeah.
So improvements and a more
And
defined.
it's hilly up there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And these, we know that these are areas of concern that need to be evaluated. Originally, we're just looking at the outfall from the tracks, but really we need to chase it all the way down. So this is more of a study area if we want to get into it and figure out how to really get that flow to an adequate outfall.
A lot of these have come through the drainage committee. These are bigger than quick fixes, so that's why they came out of this.
And then these are just a couple of added ones, Wagon Wheel and Chisholm. Again, drainage concerns into the cul-de-sac. It's where does the water go? It's got to go to the backyard and to an adequate outfall.
And that's
Lot
really
drainage.
related to the overall Bandit issue, right? Yes.
It's all tied together. That's Wagon Wheel, and Chisholm's kind of the same thing. All this water's going in people's backyards and through their side yard swells. Water can't get out of the cul-de-sac, so figuring out the best route and trying to get it to discharge at the appropriate location. All right, tell me if I go too fast, but I know in interest of time here. Last piece, the maintenance. So we went through and looked at, it was actually 132 of these, a little bit more culverts that we looked at, included some of the pedestrian crossings. Gave a report, pictures, and recommended improvements for basically each crossing. We looked at silt, erosion, safety concerns, if there wasn't adequate shoulder space from driving, head walls from a structural standpoint, if they needed to be addressed. Gave reports on every one of them. have all been waiting for this. The initial cost is about $750,000. That's to go in and just kind of get it started. It's to put riprap where you need it, address the concerns at hand. And
The
then
ones you just went over there, right? Is
The
that
head walls.
The last one?
over the 132 culverts that you have around the city, the cumulative, and this is a long list, I just did a snippet. 750 just to kind of get it up to speed, and these are third-party dollars. Ray want to mention that, so if you were to hire it out, if you were to do it in-house, that's potential cost savings. And I think you already have a maintenance program in place, which is great. 750 for initial, and then long-term, this is just going back, and if you had to dig out and get the silt out of every culvert again, which is probably pretty conservative, you might not have to do that, this would be your long-term cost on an annual budget.
Is that yearly? I thought it only had to be done every 10 years or so.
It depends on how bad it is. So there's no rule of thumb. What I say, if it's blocking the flow of water, it needs to be done. It's supposed to be inspected, I would say, well, I guess you would know your culverts, but it could be after every rain event, just seeing how the silt, if there's a lot of debris and trees floating, go evaluate it and address as needed.
Wow.
Little Bear Creek was one of the areas that Ray and I was talking about after we did all the roadway crossings. What were we kind of missing? We went back and looked at Little Bear Creek along the creek itself, able to use some drones where we could to access it. Got some great photos and videos. Won't really show you that today. Here's just to give you a snapshot of what we're looking at along the creek. There's some very nice and manicured areas, structurally sound for slope stability. Looks great. This downstream, and this is more the downstream of Little Bear Creek, all through HOAs. You can kind of see some erosion and debris and trees up in the upper right corner. This is the upper portion, more of the terra plantation. You can see log jams, trash, tires, just complete blockage here. Lots of erosion, blockage there. I don't know if y'all can see this. This is a trail.
Yeah.
Completely eroded there, and then, so those are areas that kind of got on the radar screen pretty fast. So do we want to kind of start fixing this and addressing this? We did not put a dollar amount because it's, do you do some of it? Do you do all of it? It's hard to, and it's kind of policy too that we can talk about later. But that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. One particular area, this was I think a resident that came in, was concerned about retaining wall, that's his yard. Retaining walls, that's running, and then Little Bear Creek has eroded up to the wall. So it's potential cantilever and collapse. Looking at some solutions, just on this one particular area, we could be looking up to about $2 million just to fix it. Little Bear Creek's deep, so it's structurally significant. You're gonna have to come in with a pretty detailed structural design. It's not just throw stuff up there, it's gonna get washed
It's an
away.
existing retaining wall that's there?
Yes, sir.
How deep was it? Does anybody know?
We don't have plans on it.
Is it on private property or is that?
It's on private property.
Yikes.
Okay.
Good question.
Our property is adjacent to it.
Yes.
That property we own. The creek's on ours.
It backs up to our city property over
So
there.
that's where the creek is?
Yeah,
on
the tail,
City,
trail.
city property.
Okay. That was a lot of information. I'm
Okay,
gonna pause.
good.
Done so well.
Great.
Very
We're
good.
soaking in really quick.
So we're almost through, and so what we wanted to do here with the next 3 slides is, so we gave the public a chance to provide us with feedback. We also wanted to provide the council with a chance for feedback as well. So we're looking to, we're gonna come back with the summarized approach and evaluations process with everything that we've looked at. We'll start updating the design criteria. Go to the next one. So here's where we're asking feedback from y'all. As far as the direction of the roadway crossing projects to address, and maybe this is not something that we address today, but we'll bring on the next one. You know, are you good with the high priority projects being done first? What type of budget do we, so this is an ongoing dialogue that we're gonna have. What type of budget do we need to develop for these projects? It's in the time frame. Are we looking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Are we developing a CIP over that long term? And pretty much the same questions for each component of that, the neighborhood studies to get some of those projects going, which the cost didn't seem outrageously high. I think some of those are doable and we can probably knock those out, but some of the other ones are some high-reaching fruit.
You're looking at a comprehensive over probably $40 million at least that we're trying to
Sure.
bite
The
off.
37 that were added, the 18, 8, and 10, did that include the roads that had the crossings?
Yes.
Yes, they did. There was a combination of based on that criteria that she had with the level of water over the road.
With the high priority.
So, I don't think we have time
Right.
to give you this now. I'm not prepared.
We just wanted to give you an overview and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
give you
because I
thinking
think
about
we have to come up with what's the strategy of approach even here.
Right.
What's the strategy which would kind of evolve into a process or policy from our
Exactly.
perspective? And only then would we be able to apply that to start answering some of these questions.
Absolutely. Basically, we just wanted to get it out there, to let you know what we've been doing. Here are the questions to be thinking of, and then we're gonna put those visions together for you to start. It's gonna back and forth quite a
Yeah,
bit
but
to finish
things
this
I'm
off.
thinking about is like, you looked at Little Bear Creek, so we got Big Bear Creek and Little Bear Creek. Those
Right.
are the major, and with tributaries off those, but those are the major flow channels. So, if those are getting backed up because one of them's clogged up with stuff, that clearly could affect other properties upstream. So maybe that becomes strategically important to figure out how we're gonna deal with these major creeks that go through town, kind of on an ongoing basis, and what are we gonna do? And then, and I tend to think safety too. Where's the big safety points that we need to take care of quickly?
Right.
So, I'm just trying to fill out something to kind of cast an idea of how you'd even go about thinking about the strategic
I think
view.
we should also layer it into that,
Yeah.
look at which ones might be the best grant application.
Yeah.
Which ones might, as you layer into the
Yeah,
strategic
so that-
approach.
Right, because that would certainly factor in. If there's areas that could be big grant opportunities, we might push those up because
Right.
there's opportunity to get money to help do it. And I don't know the answer to any of that
No,
stuff.
Right.
We're gonna have to develop an implementation plan. We're gonna have to look at our funding opportunities,
Yeah.
both from grant perspective, but also from our own budgetary
Yeah,
perspective.
sure.
And develop what we would develop for you is a plan that includes a strategy, it includes an implementation prioritization, and then it also includes a funding mechanism, and then builds that into what could be a 5-year capital plan. And then come back to you and say, okay, are these the right priorities, or where should we adjust or shift? But at least you have a general idea of the constraints you have within which to work.
Absolutely.
I view this, we got a ton of data now.
Right, we do, now we just gotta put it together.
Very good.
As
Really,
Missy
really
said-
There's a lot of work to do to deal with that.
Right. As
That's the
Missy
easy
said-
part, right? Y'all
Yeah.
got the hard part.
Missy said that this is, just a bunch of data, and we wanna put it as a living document that we can continue to
Don't let
use
it
and,
shelf.
and keep it going. So it's gonna be an ongoing problem as we move forward.
Yeah.
But it's just something we're gonna develop and try to attack.
Very good.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
so
guys.
much.
I think we did that very well.
Sorry.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think
we'll have.
very
Well, and it'll depend how the calendar works. We may have
Yeah.
an ability to have that the only item on the agenda, or it may require its own special work session. Depends how the calendar is. If the calendar's real light, it's gonna be great.
Got 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I'll be quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Kyle Lesser, Finance Director. Real quickly, I just want to go over the budget calendar for the upcoming budget process. Your attachment in your agenda has a lot more detail. I just sort of highlighted some of the major ones here. In a nutshell, it's going to be basically the same process as last year. We just sort of updated the dates here. So the first one coming up, of course, this month would be to post the applications for the FY21 agency agreements. We'll then have our kickoff in March 26th. On April 7th, this may be the only question I really have, is you may want to think if you still want to do a work session with the agency presentations. I know that can be a long work session, and sometimes the information doesn't change that much from year to year. But I'm happy to facilitate either that or something a little more low-key there.
Yeah, so the question there is, we bring in Grace and everybody else, and they give us presentations. We tend to fund and not repeatedly fund many of them. Do we still think we need to have all of them come in? Do we ask them if they want to come in? So think
You mean
about
like they
doesn't
did just a
vary
month
that
or two
much.
ago?
Huh?
Like they did just a month or two ago?
No, it was
Last
last
year.
year. It was at this.
Last
It
year.
was last year. It was a year
Last
ago.
year, they came in.
Anybody that's requesting, in nonprofits, requesting funding from the city, we always bring in.
Yes.
It's
I just-
always about the
my
same
brain
thing every
is
year.
like not firing
Yeah.
properly tonight.
So think about,
One
we
of
can
them
do it a little
was
different if we
the
choose to.
the group that came in, but we had all of the presentations from the
Together.
Catholic Charities.
I think that if we figure out that
10
we're gonna
minutes each.
give them some money anyways, let's just say this is what we're gonna budget and allocate it, and you don't have to come.
They ask for a certain amount
Yeah.
each year,
We're
don't
talking
they?
about Catholic Charities.
I
I was talking to the
Yes, they'll be
transition
back.
specialist at CTMS, and she was saying that really, as like a North Texas Transportation Agency can contract like subcontract to Catholic Charities.
Yeah.
And so we may be able to do it for a smaller number
Yeah,
if
'cause
we
that
go
number
through
was-
them and they contract
Yeah.
out who they want to drive since they're
Yeah.
covering this area, is what my understanding was.
Yeah, the problem with Catholic Charities was more complex than that because Catholic Charities was using vehicles that they were recognized as assigned to another agency or paid for by another agency. And so they were trying to get us to join, bless you, and then to buy our own vehicles and be part of that consortium. And that's when they came in with that $100,000. And so I've talked to the residents again who've been interested, and they'll probably come back again this year and request that we do something on that. This is for transporting of individuals, either for seniors for medical or for younger people and special needs and all different types. And so last year, the presentation was part of this group
Yeah.
dynamic. I expect it to be back again, but I don't know if there's an exception that's different, they may be the one that comes to present, and you don't need the others.
Yeah.
But I think your point is valid. Most of the awards have been the same,
Right.
with the same groups year after year.
So I'll fast forward here a little bit. Late May is when we really start to see the rubber hit the road as well as property values released to us, preliminary values, and of course keep you updated with that. We've so far scheduled 2 work sessions in June. On the 2nd will be the first one, and then the 16th, of course, and then the Crime Control Prevention District hearing and work session as well. That budget is adopted in early July. We'll also talk about the draft 5-year CIP at that point, and go through a few public hearings. Late July is when we have our final property tax values, and so that's when things really start to be solidified. And then you'll actually get the written city manager's proposed budget by July 31st. Of course, work sessions throughout August, for August 4th. Some irregular work sessions for CEDC on the 11th there. And in September, we'll have some of our tax rate hearings, depending on what that rate ends up being. We adopt on September 15th. I've probably just a little graphic here so you know what boards are meeting when.
Is it, the CEDC and the August 11th meeting, is it possible to layer that with one of the other ones, or does it need its own meeting? I'm asking.
I think there's CEDC bylaws.
It has to do with the bylaws.
I
Okay.
think so.
Or
Where's the
having one right
challenges?
before, I don't know, because it's not usually too long, or?
Are you talking about the regular meeting?
I just wondered if, with that CEDC is a standalone come in for that meeting independently, I just
Let me
wondered if.
pull it up.
Okay.
I think it's a bylaws
I
thing.
mean, if not,
If he
then,
wants one less babysitter.
yeah.
Okay, time. So
And as school gets closer to starting, you know?
I'm saying it'd be nice to put it on the 4th.
It'd be nice, if it doesn't work for
Possible.
bylaws, obviously, that's fine, but just.
Okay.
Yeah, the bylaws say it should be the 4th Tuesday in August.
Got it. That's not the 4th Tuesday in August.
No?
That would be the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 11th is,
25th meeting.
could be moved to the 4th.
Funny.
Yeah.
Why are they that specific, Adrian? Do you
Oh,
have,
it's been that way for years. We can change them. I mean,
that's kind of crazy.
The Articles
So
of
that'll be moved to the
Incorporation,
25th then.
I believe, called it out in.
The 25th is probably the fixed one, you move to 4th,
Right.
so then it is in
I think
line
the
with another
bylaws
meeting and you
mention
double up
so
a
maybe
council
there's
meeting.
more there.
But
I think that's
I'd
what
rather
she
add
said.
30 minutes onto the other
Yeah.
one than come in an
Yeah,
extra.
special meeting.
Yeah, or just do it like you did the audit meeting today. Well, there's probably 2 required, and so if the 25th is the mandated time, move the 4th, then, the 11th to the 4th, and then you can just do it like you did the audit committee meeting today at 5 o'clock
Yeah,
or 4:30.
Before, whatever you have to do.
if that works for everybody.
Happy to do that. Okay, if you have any other questions as you're reviewing this, don't hesitate to give me a call and we'll work it out.
Thank you. Okay,
Callie, good call on that.
agenda item 4 is for any items on the agenda. Ray and Jared had commented I may pull that one off. However, I looked at it again, and that's only for turning down, and so we'll leave it on there. Other than that, I don't have any comments on the agenda.
I have some concerns about the changes to the land development code.
Okay.
But we can just do that out there.
Yeah, we can talk about
That's
it.
fine.
Okay, Anything else before I close the work session? Okay, so I'm gonna close the work session. Work session starts at 6:35, and we're moving into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter B, Section 551.071 legal, Section 551.072 real estate, and Section 551.087 economic development. We're now in executive session.
I had a couple of
Check, check, check. I think it's only every time you restart the room, it like somehow disconnects itself.
Oh, okay.
This is where the lighter sits. It's fine. Point all the mics on there. Point all the mics on there.
Yeah, that's what I was. Except for the lawyers, it doesn't have to be. Tammy's doesn't really have to be either. I want to hear her regardless.
I have the camera right there.